Iconic sounds in social realism. Different sounds are used in social realism films, whether it's diegetic or non-diegetic. The sounds used usually depends on the social groups established. Depending on social groups. Depending on the different social groups featured, sound is used to ensure it's readable to the cast to make it as realistic as possible. This is England, directed by Shane Meadows, is set in the 80s and therefore soundtracks from that time is incorporated to emphasize a realistic attitude. Also, if a cast of the younger generation is used, songs that will appeal to them would be used. For example, in Kidulthood, directed by Menhaj Huda. Therefore, social realism films focus on the cast and target audience in order to make the film realistic. How and why sound is used. Andrea Arnold uses diegetic sounds through everyday items. For example, she uses diegetic sound through a radio and fish tank. She does this in order to create realism and engage the audience in ways they understand and are familiar to. Also, social realism films are usually dialogue heavy. This is done in order to engage the audience in the storyline, rather than them getting sidetracked by the sounds playing, other than dialogue. Furthermore, inspirational sounds are often used to emphasize hope, as the protagonist usually goes through a real-life struggle. Therefore, sound is used to ensure the audience feels sympathy for the protagonist. Examples of iconic sounds. Protagonist. Typical sounds from the surroundings are used intentionally to make the film seem more realistic as it sets the scene from the perspective of the protagonist. To make it as realistic as possible, most social realism films are dialogue-based. This means that there are only a few non-diegetic soundtrack used. This is effective as it ensures the audience pays attention to the protagonist. Sounds which are relatable to the situation is usually used. For example, if the protagonist felt like an outsider, the soundtrack would be quite dull and have a slow pace. As social realism films usually contains romance, a positive and negative soundtrack can be used for the emotion felt. This is usually done to switch the mood of the audience to fit the emotions of the protagonists. Inspirational sounds are used in order to create sympathy for a character due to the struggles in life. Also, it engages the audience into building hope for the protagonist.